Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are tackling a concept that is literally at the very core of the human experience, but one that is just so often completely misunderstood. Today, our ultimate goal is to explore the Apostle Paul's profound letter to the Galatians to completely redefine what freedom actually is. We're going to see how true liberty isn't just about breaking chains, it's really about what you do once those chains are gone.
So, what does it actually mean to be free? It's kind of a paradoxical question, right? If you ask the modern world, the answer is usually pretty straightforward. Freedom means never denying a desire. It's having the absolute right to do whatever you want, whenever you want, without anyone breathing down your neck. But the sources we're diving into today, they challenge that idea head on. They suggest that this headlong pursuit of personal desire is actually a false liberty. True freedom is something much, much deeper. And to really wrap our heads around it, let's look at a brilliant historical analogy. The great evangelist D.L. Moody shared this incredibly powerful illustration of a former slave in the South right after the Civil War. She was profoundly confused about her status. She knew an Emancipation Proclamation had been signed, but her old master kept insisting she wasn't free. Think about that. She was legally emancipated, yet she was still living under the psychological tyranny of her former owner. This perfectly illustrates the spiritual reality for so many of us. True liberty is freedom from the tyranny of having to earn our own righteousness. It's freedom from guilt and condemnation. But just like the woman in the story, our old master tries to deceive us into thinking we're still slaves to a rigid, legalistic relationship. To unpack all this, here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the paradox of freedom. Number 2, the trap of selfishness. Number 3, liberty to serve others. Number 4, the fruit of the Spirit. And finally, number 5, keeping in step. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this first section, the paradox of freedom, escaping the yoke. The great paradox here is that staying in a place of true liberty actually takes some serious effort. It's not passive. You've been legally made free, sure, but you can still be tricked into putting yourself right back into slavery. Paul's warning is loud and clear. Stand fast and do not become entangled again with the yoke of bondage. You see, ancient Jewish teachers counted 613 individual commandments in the Law of Moses. Trying to memorize all those, let alone actually keep them, bordered on the absolutely impossible. That strict legal relationship is a restrictive yoke. We try so hard to pull God's plow under our own power, but this yoke of bondage does nothing but leave us tangled, restricted, and just incredibly frustrated. Relying on our own law-keeping means Christ's sacrifice essentially profits us nothing. But dropping that heavy yoke introduces a whole new tension. Moving on to section 2, the trap of selfishness. 2 massive traps. There are 2 massive ditches on either side of the road of true freedom. Notice the stark contrast between these 2 extremes. On one side, we have legalism, that exhausting, never-ending attempt to earn your standing through perfect obedience. But on the other side, we have license. This is the wild assumption that just because you're free, you can indulge your flesh, sin however you please, and just demand a spineless forgiveness later. The legalist is terrified of freedom because they think it'll just give people a license to sin without any restraint whatsoever. They genuinely believe a policeman on the corner is the only way to deter bad behavior. And honestly, if we aren't careful, that fear can absolutely become a reality. We can so quickly use our freedom as a base of operations for our own selfishness. When we operate in the flesh, we start looking at relationships purely for profit and power. The sources literally describe this as biting and devouring one another. It's living on the level of wild animals. The only concern is number 1, no matter the cost to anybody else. It breeds jealousy, outbursts of wrath, hardened dissensions. It is entirely self-destructive, and if we use our liberty as a platform for selfish ambition, we're ultimately going to be consumed by each other.
Which brings us to section 3, liberty to serve others, the core focus. So the crucial point is this. True freedom is not a license to sin, but an active, enthusiastic call to support others. We aren't freed just to be isolated and independent. We're freed so we can finally look past our own needs. The absolute best antidote to the flesh is a very specific kind of love. Now, the ancient Greek language had several different words for love: romantic love, brotherly love, family affection, but the word used here is agape. This is a real game changer. It isn't just an emotion that randomly bubbles up. It's a love of the mind, a deliberate decision. It means deliberately choosing to love and serve the undeserving. When we operate in agape, we conquer the flesh, not by obsessively navel-gazing or trying to suppress our bad thoughts by main force, but by getting out of our own heads and actively, humbly serving one another.
This is where the rubber meets the road. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So, I have to ask you directly, how are you using your liberty right now? Are you using your freedom as a platform to humbly support and serve the people around you? Or are you operating in the flesh, selfishly expecting everyone else to just conform to your own desires and opinions? Because true freedom always uses its liberty to lift others up. Of course, choosing agape over selfishness kicks off a fierce internal war. Let's look at section 4, the fruit of the Spirit, visualizing the battle. It's a constant battle between the spirit and the flesh, and make no mistake, they are completely contrary to one another. They do not get along at all.
And this brilliantly illustrates that stark contrast. On one side, we have the works of the flesh. Notice it's plural. It's this chaotic, fractured list of sensual, religious, and interpersonal sins that fly apart and divide us. But look at the other side, the fruit of the Spirit. It's singular. It's not a list of separate little achievements you collect one by one. It is one unified cluster of outward-facing love. Every single one of those works of the flesh is just a counterfeit or a violation of that great unifying love.
And pay attention to the word used here, fruit. Fruit isn't achieved by exhausting, frantic working. It's birthed simply by abiding, just staying connected to the source. Think about it. An apple tree doesn't strain and stress and sweat to produce an apple. It just rests and it grows naturally. When we walk in the Spirit, this beautiful, humble kindness is produced in us naturally. It nourishes the people around us. It defeats the works of the flesh, not from the outside, not through some rigid law or a policeman on the corner, but peacefully from the inside out.
All right, bringing us to our final section, section 5, keeping in step, actionable takeaways. If the goal here is inward transformation that leads to outward service, how do we actually maintain this walk of freedom in our everyday lives?
While to truly walk in the Spirit, we have to rely on His power for 3 essential things. First, we rely on the Spirit to grow in godliness, really orienting our entire mind and desires toward God. Second, we rely on the Spirit to actively obey God's commands, putting to death those selfish deeds of our flesh. And third, we rely on the Spirit to experience increasing intimacy with God, recognizing our adoption and crying out to the Father. We literally cannot fight this battle alone. We have to rely on that inner influence. Which leads us right to this incredible instruction. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. The Greek word used for walk here is super fascinating. It's actually a military term that means to keep in step with or stand beside a commanding officer. The Spirit gives us life, sure, but we must actively choose to let Him direct our steps. We've got to actively choose to nail our flesh with all its selfish passions and desires to the cross so it loses its power over us. But hey, as we do this, just a quick word of warning about one final, really subtle trap to watch out for. Even when we're walking in the Spirit, we've got to avoid the prideful trap of becoming conceited. It is so incredibly easy to start thinking that because we belong to Christ, we are always right and everyone else is just always wrong. But that unyielding intolerance, it only provokes others, breeds envy, and creates the exact divisions we're trying to escape. True spiritual walking is always paired with gentleness and teachability. The problems we face aren't just about other people or outside circumstances. The real battle is an inside job. But the absolute most beautiful truth here is this. You have been set free. You have the Emancipation Proclamation in your hand. So I want to leave you with this provocative challenge. Who will you use your freedom to serve today? How are you going to turn your liberty into humble agape acts of kindness for the undeserving? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.